12 rock songs, 1 decade, and every single one of them sold millions of copies. Not because some label forced them into rotation, but because people couldn't get enough. They wore the grooves off the vinyl. They rewound the cassette until the tape went thin. They remember exactly where they were the first time they heard that riff, that voice, that opening note. This is the story of the best-selling rock songs of the 1960s and what it actually took to make them. Number 12, Born to Be Wild, Steppenwolf, 1968. Here's the thing about Born to Be Wild. Most people think they know this song. They hum the opening riff, they say heavy metal thunder, and they move on. But the story behind this song is stranger and more interesting than anything the biker mythology suggests. The song wasn't even written by Steppenwolf. It was written by a guy named Dennis Edmonton, who went by the name Mars Bonfire, and he wrote it while driving through a California thunderstorm in a used Ford Falcon. He was thinking about the periodic table, specifically the term heavy metal, and he put it in a lyric. That lyric, Heavy Metal Thunder, is widely credited with giving an entire genre of music its name. One guy. A used car, a chemistry reference, and the name heavy metal was born. Steppenwolf took that song and turned it into something ferocious. John Kay's voice didn't whisper at you, it hit you in the chest. The guitar riff didn't ask for your attention, it took it. And when it was released in 1968, it climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, where it sat for 3 weeks, held off the top only by the Rascals. But here's what made it immortal. The song got placed in a film called Easy Rider in 1969. Two minutes into that movie, Peter Fonda is on a motorcycle. The highway is stretching out in front of him, and Born to Be Wild comes blasting out of the speakers. And that image fused itself to the culture in a way that's never come undone. You've seen that shot 100 times. You know the one. And even people who couldn't tell you who Mars Bonfire is know this song by heart. 1 million copies sold in the US alone. And a phrase, heavy metal, that would go on to define decades of music. Not bad for a used Ford Falcon in a rainstorm. Number 11, My Generation, The Who, 1965. Most songs want to be liked. My Generation didn't care if you liked it. It wanted to be felt, or it wanted to make you angry. Either way, it wanted a reaction. Pete Townshend wrote this song on a train from London to Southampton. He was 20 years old, he felt like an outsider, and the words just came. People try to put us down. I hope I die before I get old. That stutter in Roger Daltrey's vocal, that's not an accident. Townshend heard John Lee Hooker stutter and knew immediately it was the key. Once Daltrey started delivering those lines with that broken rhythm, the band knew they had something. The BBC initially refused to play it. They were worried it would offend people who stutter. And here's the beautiful irony. A song that the BBC band climbed to number 2 on the UK charts anyway, blocked from the top only by the Seekers. In America, it barely cracked the top 100. Peaked at 74, and you know what? In this case, the chart doesn't tell the truth, because my generation didn't sell on charts. It sold on attitude. Every band that came after The Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, you can trace a direct line back to this 3-minute detonation from 4 kids in Shepherd's Bush. And when The Who performed it on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in 1967, Keith Moon had packed his kick drum with explosives. Too many explosives. The thing went off like a bomb. Moon caught shrapnel from his own cymbal. Townshend's hearing was permanently damaged. They finished the song anyway. If you've ever been young and felt like nobody in the room understood what you were angry about, this was your song. Still is.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 10, Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin, 1969. Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love dropped in November 1969. The decade had 1 month left. And it arrived like a message from the 1970s. Louder, harder, stranger than almost anything else in rock history up to that point. Jimmy Page's riff is 6 notes. 6, and somehow those 6 notes contain more raw energy than entire albums from this era. Robert Plant's vocal doesn't sing the lyric, it hunts it down. And in the middle of the song, there's this breakdown that sounds like the recording equipment itself was starting to hallucinate. Tape effects, theremin, Plant moaning, Page bending the guitar into something inhuman. Here's what most people don't know. Led Zeppelin didn't release Whole Lotta Love as a single in the UK. Peter Grant, their manager, refused. He believed in the album. He believed you didn't cut up an experience like Led Zeppelin knew into bite-sized radio pieces. So in the UK, there was no single. You had to buy the album, or you heard it on the radio, or you didn't hear it. In the US, Atlantic Records pushed an edited version anyway, cut from 5.5 minutes down to 3.5. It reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it forced a question onto rock radio that hadn't been asked before. What do you do when the art refuses to fit the format? The answer for the next decade was, you let the art win. Whole Lotta Love wasn't just a song, it was a mission statement. And if you've ever stood in a room where someone cranked it up on vinyl and let that riff hit the air, you know it still sounds like a threat in the best possible way. Shake for me, yeah. Number 9, Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix, 1967. While I kiss the sky. Jimi Hendrix was playing a small club date in London backstage, messing around on the guitar. His producer Chas Chandler walked in and heard about 12 seconds of a riff. Just those opening notes. The ones you can hum right now without even thinking about them. And Chandler said, and I want you to understand how right he was, write the rest of that. That's the next single. Purple Haze was recorded in January 1967. It was released in March, and it changed the language of rock guitar the way an earthquake changes a coastline, permanently, violently, and in ways you couldn't fully measure until the dust settled. Hendrix said the song was about a dream he had. He was walking underwater. People wanted it to be about drugs because it was 1967 and everyone wanted everything to be about drugs. But here's what's wild. The song's meaning almost doesn't matter. What matters is that guitar, that chord, the Hendrix chord. Music theorists call it now a dominant 7-sharp 9 chord that shouldn't sound as visceral as it does, but absolutely does. In the UK, Purple Haze went top 3. In the US, Jimi Hendrix never had a top 10 hit on the Hot 100, All Along the Watchtower, which Bob Dylan later said Hendrix owned more than he did, peaked at 20. Purple Haze didn't even crack the top 60 in America. Think about that. The man who Rolling Stone ranked the greatest guitarist of all time. The man who lit his guitar on fire at the Monterey Pop Festival in June 1967 and made 3,000 people forget to breathe. Never had a US top 10 single. Being the best at something and getting the commercial credit for it are two different things. And that's a specific kind of loss that people who make art understand. Number 8, Light My Fire, The Doors, 1967. 7, Light My Fire was written by Robbie Krieger, not Jim Morrison. Most people forget that. Krieger was 21. Morrison had challenged the whole band to write songs for the debut album. And Krieger took a napkin, wrote a few lines about fire and love and desire, and handed it to Morrison. Morrison added the second verse, and then they built around it. Ray Manzarek's organ, John Densmore's drumming, that jazz fusion middle section that had absolutely no business being in a pop single, but somehow ended up there anyway. The album version runs 7 minutes and 6 seconds. The single version was cut to 2 minutes and 52 seconds. No time to wallow in the mire. Radio wanted 252. Radio got 252. And it went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in July 1967 and stayed there for 3 weeks. If I was to say to you. But here's where the story gets perfect. Ed Sullivan wanted the Doors on his show. He wanted Light My Fire. And producers asked Morrison to change one line. Girl, we couldn't get much higher. Because the sponsors were uncomfortable with the possible. Drug reference. The band agreed. Did a rehearsal with the altered lyric. Morrison nodded along like a reasonable adult. Then the cameras went live, and Morrison sang the original line, exactly as written. Sullivan was furious, refused to shake Morrison's hand when he left the stage, and the Doors were never invited back. And we could never do Sullivan again, Ray Manzarek said later. We were so happy, and I'll let you decide whether that was the right call. Some people say it was reckless, others say it was the only honest choice. You probably already know which side you're on. Number 7, Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan, 1965. Bob Dylan was exhausted. He'd just come back from a grueling tour of England, documented in the film Don't Look Back, and he was done. Done with folk music, done with the expectations, Done with being the voice of a generation he never agreed to represent. He sat down and wrote something that wasn't a song at first. It was 6 pages of venom and observation and raw feeling that eventually distilled itself into 4 verses and a chorus. Like a Rolling Stone was 6 minutes long. 6 in 1965. Columbia's A&R people thought that was insane. DJs thought it was unplayable. And then it hit the radio, and people called in asking them to play it again. The whole 6 minutes. DJs for weeks played the entire thing. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It couldn't get to 1. But it did something more durable than that. It proved that a rock song could carry the weight of a novel. That 3 verses could hold more truth than most books. That you didn't have to make it short to make it last. Rolling Stone magazine later named it the greatest rock song ever recorded. Not greatest of the 1960s, greatest ever. And if you've ever gone through something, really gone through something, and sat in a room with nothing left, and heard Dylan sing "How Does It Feel to Be on Your Own" with no direction home, you know that's not a lyric, that's a mirror. And once you see yourself in it, you can't unsee it. Number 6, House of the Rising Sun, The Animals, 1964. Nobody wrote House of the Rising Sun. It's a traditional folk song, a century-old story about a place in New Orleans where people's lives fell apart. And by 1964, it had been recorded. By Lead Belly, by Woody Guthrie, by Joan Baez, by Bob Dylan on his very first album. Dylan's version was acoustic, gentle, a man and a guitar. Then the Animals went into the studio on May 18, 1964. One session, 15 minutes. One take of the full version, and came out with something that sounded like it had been pulled from the bottom of the Mississippi River. Eric Burdon's voice doesn't sing that song, it confesses it. Alan Price's organ doesn't accompany it, it drowns in it. And Hilton Valentine's guitar arpeggios. That pattern you can hear in your head right now became one of the most copied guitar parts in rock history. The finished song ran 4 minutes and 29 seconds. This was a problem. Singles in 1964 were supposed to be under 3 minutes. The US release cut out a verse and an instrumental section to get it under 3. But the full version, the real version, became the first British single to top the UK charts that was over 4 minutes long. Dylan heard the Animals version on his car radio, jumped out of the car, banged on the hood, and then, according to Animals drummer John Steele, decided right then and there to go electric. One song, one decision, and the entire second half of Bob Dylan's career begins. Number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 1 in the UK. No composer credit because the song belonged to everybody, and somehow that made it feel even more eternal. Number 5, Good Vibrations, The Beach Boys, 1966. Brian Wilson started building Good Vibrations in early 1966, not as one complete song, as a series of fragments he called Feels. Little sections of music, each representing a mood. His plan was to edit them together like a mosaic, 20 recording sessions. 4 different recording studios, more than 90 hours of tape, over a period of 7 months. The final cost was somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 to record for a single in 1966. The Beatles had recorded their entire first album for about $800. Pet Sounds, the most ambitious album of Wilson's career up to that point, cost $70,000, and Good Vibrations cost more than that for one song. It wasn't supposed to work. The structure kept shifting. There's a theremin, or a tannerin, technically, providing that eerie high sound. There are cellos and flutes alongside electric guitars. The verses and the chorus don't have the same key. The whole thing was assembled from tape fragments across months in studios and dozens of musicians, many of whom never played together. And then when it came out in October 1966, it sold 230,000 copies in the first 4 days. It went to number 1. In the UK, in the US, in France, in Australia, top of the charts everywhere. The Beach Boys' first million-selling single. And in 1997, Mojo magazine named Good Vibrations the greatest record ever made. Not the greatest Beach Boys record, the greatest record, full stop. Ahead of anything the Beatles ever released. That decision to spend more time and money and creative energy on one song than had ever been spent before changed what producers thought was possible. And that's an influence that's still rippling through recording studios right now. Number 4, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, the Rolling Stones, 1965. May 6, 1965. Keith Richards is in a hotel room in Clearwater, Florida. He's exhausted from touring. He goes to bed with the tape recorder on the nightstand. He'd taken to sleeping with one, because ideas have a way of arriving at 3 a.m. and disappearing by morning. Sometime in the middle of the night, he woke up, picked up the guitar, recorded 30 seconds of a 3-note riff and the words, "I can't get no satisfaction." Then he fell back asleep. In the morning, the tape was at the end. He rewound it, hit play, heard his own snoring for 40 minutes, and then those 30 seconds of riff. And that riff became the most identifiable guitar hook in the history of rock music. The band initially worried it was too close to Martha and the Vandellas dancing in the street. Keith Richards actually wanted to keep it as a demo. He wasn't sure it was ready. Mick Jagger pushed to release it. They recorded it at RCA Studios in Hollywood on May 12th. The fuzz box Richards used on the guitar, a Gibson Maestro fuzz tone he just bought, was supposed to be a placeholder for a horn arrangement that never came. The fuzz stayed, and by the end of 1965, the entire stock of Gibson Maestro fuzz tones had sold out across the country because of this one record. Satisfaction went to number 1 in the US on July 10, 1965, 4 weeks at the top. The Stones' first American chart topper. In the UK, the BBC initially refused to play it because the lyrics were considered too sexually suggestive, so pirate radio stations played it instead. It went to number 1 in the UK too. Rolling Stone magazine ranked it number 2 on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. The Library of Congress put it in the National Recording Registry in 2006. And if you've ever had a morning where everything felt exactly wrong and you just needed someone to say it out loud, you know why this song has Never Once Felt Old. Number 3, Proud Mary, Creedence Clearwater Revival 1969. John Fogerty wrote Proud Mary in a day. He'd just gotten his discharge papers from the Army. His military commitment was done. And he sat down and the song just poured out of him. A riverboat. A woman named Mary, the Mississippi. Fogerty had never actually been to the Mississippi River when he wrote the song. He'd never seen it. He wrote it from imagination, from movies, from books, from the idea of something big and slow and rolling through the American South. After the song was recorded, he finally made the trip to Memphis just to see the river he'd been singing about. Proud Mary was released in January 1969. By March, it had climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, where it got stuck for 3 weeks. Blocked first by Sly and the Family Stone and then by Tommy Roe. CCR would go on to have 5 consecutive singles peak at number 2 without ever. Breaking through to 1. The most number 2 songs in rock history without a chart topper. Some people call that a curse. Some people call it consistency at a level most bands never reach. Over 1 million copies sold in the US. And then something interesting happened. The song kept spreading. Solomon Burke covered it. Ike and Tina Turner covered it in 1971 and took it to number 4. The song outlasted the decade that made it and kept finding new audiences, new voices, new meanings. And if you've ever heard that Ike and Tina version and then come back to the original and understood them as 2 completely different experiences, you already know what it means for a song to be bigger than its recording. Number 2, I Wanna Hold Your Hand, The Beatles, 1963-1964. October 17, 1963. The Beatles walk into EMI Studios in London and record I Want to Hold Your Hand on a brand new piece of equipment, a 4-track recorder. First time they'd ever used one. The song took 1 session, and from the moment it was done, everyone in the room knew it was different. In the UK, advance orders alone exceeded 1 million copies before the record was released. It debuted at number 1 in Britain on its release day, except that it couldn't reach number 1 because their own previous single, She Loves You, was having a resurgence and was blocking it. Their biggest competitor was themselves. In America, Capitol Records had been refusing to release Beatles records. They passed on every single, passed on Please Please Me, passed on She Loves You, passed on From Me to You. They didn't think a British rock group could sell in America. When I say that song, so the Beatles had been bouncing between tiny labels, VJ Records, Swan Records, getting next to no attention. I think you'll understand. She Loves You had sold about 1,000 copies in the US. Nobody wanted to know. Then a teenager heard I Want to Hold Your Hand on a radio in Washington, D.C. and called the DJ and begged him to play it again. And then other people called, and it spread, not through label promotion, not through marketing strategy, through human beings who couldn't stop talking about it. Capitol finally relented. They released the record on December 26, 1963. It entered the Billboard Hot 100 on January 18, 1964. I think you'll understand. By February 1st, 14 days later, it was number 1. It stayed there for 7 weeks, and it launched the British invasion opened America to an entire generation of UK rock and changed the music industry permanently.
I think you'll understand when
More than 12 million copies sold worldwide, the best-selling Beatles single in history. And on April 4th, 1964, the Beatles held the top 5 positions on the Billboard Hot 100 simultaneously. All 5, a feat that has never been matched. Number 1, Hey Jude, The Beatles, 1968. The summer of 1968, John Lennon has left his wife Cynthia for Yoko Ono. The divorce is ugly. And John and Cynthia's son Julian, 5 years old, is caught in the middle of it. Paul McCartney gets in his Aston Martin and drives to Weybridge, Surrey, to check on Cynthia and the boy. Just to be decent, just because the kid needed someone to show up. And on that drive, he starts singing. Hey Jules, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. A pep talk for a 5-year-old boy. From someone who didn't have to be there at all. He changes Jules to Jude because it sounds better musically. He shows the lyric to John Lennon.
and anytime you feel the pain.
He's embarrassed by one line. The movement you need is on your shoulder, and tells Lennon he'll fix it. Lennon says, you won't, you know. That's the best line in the whole song. They recorded in late July and early August 1968, a 36-piece orchestra, 7 minutes and 11 seconds of music, nearly 3 times the length of a normal pop single. At the time, it was one of the longest songs ever to aim for the top of the charts. Radio programmers thought they were joking. It was also the first release on Apple Records. The label The Beatles had just started. The first statement of a new chapter. And the last Nana Nakota, 4 minutes long, was written for a band that had already stopped performing live. There was no stage to play it on. And somehow that makes it feel more generous. 4 minutes of a chant that was built purely for other people to carry. Hey Jude went to number 1 in the United States on September 28, 1968. It stayed there for 9 weeks, the longest running number 1 in the US for the entire decade. Number 1 in 12 countries. 5 million copies in the first 6 months. Over 8 million worldwide. Julian Lennon later said he has a love-hate relationship with the song. He's grateful. He's also the kid in the back seat who never got credit for making it exist. And John Lennon, who McCartney swore he wasn't writing the song for, heard it and thought it was for him anyway. A message to go be with Yoko, to leave the old life behind. Both of them were right. That's what the best songs do. They find the person who needs them. The best-selling rock song of the 1960s, and the most personal one on this list.
It's a fool.